Hey guys, Amanda the G here in my very messy kitchen. I am aware that my island has a lot of stuff on it, but today we are tackling something that I've never made before that has always scared me, and we're gonna see if it works out. Today we're making macarons. Gold star to anyone who guessed that from that intro. And for some reason, you need granulated sugar and powdered sugar, salt, almond flour, egg whites, and then vanilla. And it says to use a little bit of food coloring, gel food coloring, so we're doing that. I don't have the color that this recipe calls for, but it doesn't really matter. I am using a recipe that I will link below that I'm going to try. I am not filling them with buttercream though, but we will get to that at some point. But first, we gotta put some of this stuff in the food processor. So into the food processor goes 1 3/4 cups of powdered sugar, 1 cup of almond flour, a half of a teaspoon of salt, and then we have to process this until it's extra fine, whatever that means. Now, because that's not enough, we also have to then put it through a strainer or a sieve into a bowl to get all the rest of the clumps out. So I'm guessing that this means it's very important that these do not have any clumps. These dry ingredients now go off to the side, and we have to separate some eggs and beat the egg whites, because I don't want to necessarily do this wrong. I'm going to have a couple bowls, and I'm also going to try and keep the egg yolks and do something else with them. Damn it. The recipe specifically states that the egg whites need to be room temperature, but I broke one. So now I'm just really hoping that that's really more of a suggestion than a hard line, because this is straight out of the fridge. Into the egg whites goes another half a teaspoon of salt, and then we have to just let this machine beat the crap out of them until we have soft peaks. Okay, to this, we now have to gradually add in a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. This is supposed to go to stiff peaks, and it says you should be able to hold the bowl upside down without anything happening. And so now to this, I have to add vanilla, which is a half a teaspoon of vanilla. Then finally we add some food coloring to this. It said to just do a couple drops of a gel food coloring. I'm going with orange because it's what I got. Now comes the very stressful part of taking this a third at a time and folding it into these egg whites so that they don't completely lose all of their poofiness. That's the whole point. That's a very technical term, I'm aware. Fold. Now for one of the weirdest directions that I've ever seen in a recipe is you have to keep folding this until you can make a figure 8 on the top and have it stay, which is a really weird distinction. I don't know who came up with that. Okay, this says specifically to do this in a piping bag, but I'm going to do it in a Ziploc bag because I don't really want to fill the bag more than once. I'm not sure if I'm making these big enough. I'm not sure if I'm spacing them out enough. I'm really kind of overwhelmed right now. We're gonna keep going. I'm aware that there are mats that are designed to help you with that process, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Now for another very weird direction, it says to tap this 5 times to release the air bubbles, which is very specific. And I'm gonna do a couple more than 5 because there's bubbles in here. Okay. And now, because these cookies get even weirder, they have to sit here and dry out for a half hour to an hour. Then I have to bake them, and then they have to come out onto a wire rack and cool. So I will be back when all that's done to fill them and see if this turned into what I'm considering another jelly roll incident, which y'all don't know anything about. But when I was a kid, I made a jelly roll, or at least I attempted to make a jelly roll, and it went so terribly bad that to this day I have never made an actual jelly roll, and I never even attempted it again. So we'll see if this turns into that. Okay, I want to talk about the last several hours of my life. I don't know entirely what I did wrong, but none of them have the rise that they're supposed to. It's called the feet. The only ones that got even close to having feet are the ones that were on the silpat. So evidently you can't do this otherwise. Some of them got all crunchy-fied when I took them off. I'm not sure if this is fully baked. It doesn't seem like it is, but then they were also getting overbaked. So they're both simultaneously overbaked and underbaked, and a lot of them are the same way, like that. And I don't know what I did. I don't know how to fix it. Obviously it's too late to fix it, but this is what we have and we're gonna fill them. And I am not filling them with buttercream because buttercream and I do not get along right now. It's not very good for my stomach and I just can't. Right now I just can't. So this is Nutella, which is also not great for my stomach, but Nutella is gonna save this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pipe these together for some reason, and we're gonna finish these off, despite the fact that I am really quite upset at how they came out. I'm trying to pretend that this is all fine. So let's just put a whole bunch of this in here, and we're just gonna attach them together. Now, I am aware that these are probably the hardest cookie to make. And if they're not the hardest, they're pretty well up there. There's a reason they're so expensive. That looks terrible. I'm hoping that in this process, I will make one that looks decent, and that one will end up on Instagram, and we will pretend that I know what I'm doing, even though I don't. So let's just put Nutella in here. I will say they do taste good because I know that there were some chunks that came off in the process, and it tastes kind of like Captain Crunch. Don't really know why it tastes like Captain Crunch. Probably shouldn't taste like Captain Crunch. Don't know what I did. At this point, the only thing I can say is if I ever do these again, that's a big if right now, I will not use the same recipe and I will use a silpat instead of using the parchment paper because that didn't work. You also have to turn them in the oven, which they don't tell you, and I'll remember to do that. They also took a lot longer to bake than the recipe said, so things to keep in mind. Okay, we're done now. I had a lot of problems doing this. Obviously, I don't know entirely what went wrong, but clearly a lot did. These 5 are gonna be for social media. I'm gonna try and make them look worthwhile to photograph. This is the one I'm gonna try in a second because I clearly made the cookies just completely different sizes. So in one of these videos, you gotta try one, so we're gonna try this reject one in a second. These other ones are going to go in the refrigerator for the weirdest instruction that I've ever dealt with, which is that they have to bloom for 24 hours. So you're supposed to let them sit for 24 hours before you eat them. They're also not supposed to crack on the top. They're supposed to have feet and stick up. I tried, I failed, but we're gonna eat one and we're gonna try and not think about it. And I realize now that one of these, if I split those up, they would be better sized together. Whatever, I'm just gonna eat it. They're not supposed to be chewy like this. I don't know if letting them sit for 24 hours helps that, but they're kind of like chewy, like a caramel almost. I don't know what I did. Let me know what you thought about these in the comments down below. Stay fresh, cheese bags. Now it's time to show the social media pictures and make this seem like it's so much better of an experience than it was.